Hey, hello everyone. It is the 1st of July. Welcome. And I could not do a weekly wrap up. I was out in Madison, Wisconsin with my daughter's diving competition, but we came back last night. So I'm going to try to get over some of these weekly charts in this video here and cover it as much as I can. Obviously, we're beginning a new month here this week. Clearly shorter. We have 4th of July here in the US on Thursday. Markets will be closed, and I think Friday I think it's a full session. But either way, the couple of weekly closes, the weekly closes for the past couple of weeks have been pretty lame. You can see in here, right, just not a lot of activity, and we seem to be beginning this month with a little bit of a positive tone. So let me first go through these daily charts, and then we'll go back to the weekly to kind of get a better picture. The S&P had a little bit of an outside reversal day on Friday, so it must have had, they rallied them up. I think we've talked last week briefly about the possibility of that being, still a move higher above 55 to finish up a fifth wave. Then they pulled back. It looked like they might wanted to kind of start to correct a little bit, but there was a lackluster performance today from the bears, and we actually closed up about 27 basis points. Nothing really significant, but I think that Friday obviously was the end of the month, the end of the week, the end of the quarter. So a bunch of flows kind of took place on that day, and maybe a bunch of profit taking, who knows. But bottom line is, once you see something like this, you have an expectation of a continuation lower, and that has not happened yet. So this 54.50 continues to hold. A lot of bids coming in, and they're continuing to support this market. If we talked last week about if we're going to take over this high, which kind of happened here, that the market, it's likely going to continue. It tried to, then failed, but now, obviously our main focus is, I would say maybe 78.6 retracement of this entire candle. Maybe that's again about 5,500, and we'll see if they can, take that higher. So for right now, there's not much to do here. The uptrend is still in place, the 20-day, the 50-day, the 150. Market is trading fine. You have an RSI that's just hovering about 67. Only one problem, we have the yields are kind of rallying, and I don't know if that's got to do anything with some election fears or I don't know, economic issues. I don't know, why this is going on, and doesn't matter, I guess. But the bottom line is that yields have been rallying and kept higher, and you can see that, Nasdaq was pretty hurt today. I think it recovered a little bit. We'll take a look, but the fact that yields are climbing here, right? This is some kind of a complex three-wave move, and you're starting to break about 4.6. It's going to be tough for the market to be very positive if yields break 4.65. So keep that in mind. Have an eye on yields here. We'll see. It's done it before. We could fail, but we overtook this high, right, from beginning of June. So that's definitely interesting. Let's take a look at IWM. So you see in here on the daily how we came lower. Today at some point we were even lower than 1%. If I go and I look at the 1-minute chart, here is the sell-off in IWM, and that's pretty much got a lot to do with those yields pushing higher like that. So the picture on on IWM, it's still not very encouraging, right? And there's a lot of false starts here. You gotta be careful. It's still it's still a dance on a converging average scenario in here. Eventually we'll create some kind of an explosion out of this, and that's going to be something to definitely follow if we're getting it, and we want to participate into that. Taking a quick look here again at the Nasdaq 100, nice move, 60 basis points after we briefly broke below this candle. We kind of negated it with this small hammer today, a little bit of a higher than average volume. for all intents and purposes, this remains pretty bullish above the 20-day. And I've added to 2 positions today. I've added to my Apple position, which we'll go over in a second, over the mega caps, over those 7 stocks. Even Tesla had a pretty massive move today, and that stopped me out. But I've added to Apple and I've added to Kava, which is 2 stocks that I own there, and I'm trying to build larger positions in those as we're moving forward. So decent move here from the Nasdaq, and there's going to be a lot of fight that needs to happen lower to try to deter this and try to move it back lower. I know we're coming into July, towards the end of July. Things, maybe the first couple of weeks of July are still positive, but kind of seasonally you're starting to move into a period of a slowdown, July, August, September. So we want to be aware of that. I don't know how much stronger this market can actually go, but for right now, if we're following the trend, it's still okay. I looked at here's Fidelity Blue Chip Growth, also bouncing nicely off the 20, right? It had an attempt here to kind of break below it. It got bought. It got bought again at the 20-day. Pretty good volume in here. The PPO, it's rolling over, but it's above the 0 line, so that's still a positive territory, even though you're losing momentum. Looks like bulls are looking for every opportunity to try to get into this trend. Taking a look at XLG, which will look very similar, the top 50 stocks in the S&P 500. We just looked at the Russell, Nasdaq Composite. We know Dow Jones in here, pretty much flat PPO. Not a lot of excitement in this index, so I wouldn't touch it there. There's not much to do. Semiconductors also are trying to get stabilized, but NVDA, it's not really pulling back higher. It's just still kind of sitting. It almost looks like the semiconductors are sending a message of that they need to correct a bit more, or at least, but it looks like they're doing it sideways. Let me just grab a sip of coffee. It looks like they're doing it sideways instead of down. I mean, if that's a B wave, and you try to crack below this line, then you might have a little bit of a C decline. But I would not. I would be very careful. It's definitely a rising 50, and they're going to find bids again. Bitcoin, let's touch on that. Nice response of the 60, and it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of the zone being tested. Continuously, I would say, with a couple of reactions. And today, actually yesterday, we kind of closed up, and today we're fighting the 20-day. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing here, holding support, which is what we wanted to see first, as the first signal that the bears are losing control, and then the bulls are starting to kind of come back in, right? We don't want to buy just because you're at the support. You want to see this action actually taking place. So now it is taking place. It's a very small move. It's still below the 20, still below the 50. So, if anybody, it's not my cup of tea to initiate positions based on this formation. I think it's very early. If obviously anybody wants to do it, I would definitely, not have a daily close below the 60K, even a hard stop below there, right? You don't want to be involved if the market cracks that. And then you have about a $3,000 risk, and just say, fine, I'm gonna wait until we get through those upper limits. Looks like kind of that's the trend line. We're finally violating it to the upside. A little bit of volume coming in, so things are starting to look good, and even better if we start to break above that 50-day. So that's going to be kind of what I'm going to be looking for over the next several sessions. And if that's starting to move, then I know I got a bit more cushion to the downside, and I'm a bit happier that I trade with a bit more momentum. You can see the PPO in here; it's also kind of rolling back. We need RSI to crack 50. To get more momentum, and we also want to see, I think a bit more volume and a bit more percentage gains from Bitcoin rather than just a small, 1.5% too. I think you want to see a bit more than that. So that's definitely my view on Bitcoin and Ethereum here. It's kind of working itself out as well, kind of following Bitcoin along, and maybe above 3600 will start to look a little bit better. PPO above 0, RSI above 50 towards 55 or so, and then we can get some momentum going on that. Okay, let's take a look at these kind of weekly time frames. So, volume looks okay, and uptrend still continues, looks pretty good. A little bit of a pause, but nothing super concerning just yet, right? Pretty clear picture of an uptrend in here, and you definitely want to see some black, at least a black week to think about, hey, maybe we're about to correct. So far, nothing of that matter. RSP really not participating in here. It's pretty much flat, but it could be just a sideways consolidation. Nasdaq, after 2 weeks, these couple of 2 weeks of almost nothing with upside rejections, it's coming back and trying to challenge. And resting off, if you're gonna crack above those 2 weeks and start to move above whatever that is, 20K or something, on the Nasdaq 100 and close above there on a weekly basis, I think that could be a bullish sign going forward. And you could be, in situations like this where you're consolidating sideways a little bit and then you start to move. So maybe it's waiting for this 20-day. I would love to see something like this, right? To see a test of that 20-day, a nice hammer. Then with a lot more conviction, we're going to get buying, just like this happened here as well, right? We're a bit extended still. Right, semiconductors on the weekly also looking fairly okay. Not a huge upside rejection on the weekly basis. Dow Jones, I'm pretty sure it looks pretty bad, kind of sideways. But listen, if this can happen, and you're going to crack right there, right, and then you come back a little bit, and then you can start to do something like that. And this is just a simple, could be this kind of 1-2 or even a flat here, and then you start to move further higher on the market. So we'll keep an eye on that. Russell on the weekly time frames, it's still fighting. Like I said, there's no reason yet to get too excited about this guy, especially with the yields pushing. Bitcoin on a weekly basis, nice little hammer again of the 60, so that looks good. But you have the 10-week right above there, still beautiful uptrend. You want to be positive on Bitcoin, let's say long term, right? If you're above a 40-week moving average, which is the 200-day. Look what happened here after we cracked it. We held here, right? I know this was a brief crack with the hammer, and then we continued, and then we cracked it right here. Then we went back, and that was resistance. Came all the way down, fought a little bit with it, came back, support, went all the way up there, came back, support, and it's just confidence that the market gives you once it trades above those levels. So this is still pointing upwards, which is positive. So we don't want to be, shorter term. Sure, you can avoid those corrections by getting out. If you look at the daily time frame or the 4-hour time frame, if you see, but longer term, with Bitcoin here, it still looks pretty decent. So I don't have a problem keeping along. So I want to see it kind of get back above there. I still think this whole thing here, it's corrective, and we should do something like love my arrow like that, right? It's kind of pushing higher. How does Ethereum looks on a weekly? Not really falling apart again, but I think it needs to prove a bit more upside here. And then 10-year yields, right? Almost looks like a morning star right here formation. Bearish, doji, a little bit bullish, not fully as this one, but you're getting again back above the 10-week moving average. And if yields are climbing, all kind of bad things can happen. The dollar is also climbing higher slowly, right? Rejection from low, rejection from low, rejection from low. A lot of downside tails in the dollar that could suggest that you can have further upside work in the dollar. So if you're cracking 106, yields pushing higher, that's going to be a signal of caution in the market, and I would not want to be too aggressive buying stocks or buying risk, right? Doesn't mean that necessarily they have to be sold, but I I would not add additional exposure. Gold on the weekly, and I don't think I touched on the daily either, but just consolidating, not doing a whole lot in here doesn't interest me. The way it looks, it needs to do a lot more than just this. Like I said, it had a bunch of upside rejection. Is now just kind of hugging the 10-week. Well, hugging the 10-week is good. It means that it's offering support, which is what we want, and then we want to see this kind of do this and start to trend again, and the 10 moving average going like that, because if I am to pull this back, let's say 15 years, I mean, for the past 4 years here, it was almost a nothing burger. This is the 10-week right here that offered a pretty good move, and then right here, once you start to break, you can kind of continue to go. So I would definitely follow this as a I would say maybe more of a position, not even as a swing kind of trade, more of a position trade that can continue to grow towards, let's say, I don't know, $35, $40 silver, if that. But it's offering you, right here at this level, probably a pretty decent risk reward. If you want to kind of pick this low of this candle or a weekly close here as a stop or something like that, it's a bit tough. Not the most ideal pattern, when you look at it, but in terms of moving averages, that's fine. Okay, light crude oil, not doing much here, just, actually close to 84. We'll see if we get above that resistance, and then maybe we begin a trend or something like that. Okay, quick look at the Magnificent Seven. All right, let's start with Apple. So again, I've added to my longs right here. I bought them below, before their conference and all. So I want to continue to be long this market, position-wise. Let's take a look at the weekly time frame, right? I like what I see on RSI at about 70, a PPO that's pushing. I like this little formation here. I think this is a big corrective move in here, maybe a nice little flat, and we're building. And I think Apple, obviously I'm biased because I own the shares, but I'm looking towards 240, 250 and higher on Apple moving forward. Amazon here on the weekly also with a pretty nice close, nice volume. Take a look at the daily. Still looks solid, and last week, towards the end of last week, we sold off a little bit in here. It will come back again above the moving averages, which are trending. That's that triangle I talked about. Could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a wave 1. That's another wave 2, and then you can keep going. You got Google not doing a whole lot of wrong things either. So if you look at the macro weekly, still nice and solid, right? There's no, maybe on a bit of a lower volume than average, but still looks fine. I mean, as long as you're above 180, I think you're good. Meta also, pushed higher, then it shook people out here. They were trying to, they had stops below 490, never reached, and then closed back above the 20-day in here. I think it's going to have a little bit of work to do, to kind of break 520 and 530. So in my view, it's a hold and a wait. And here is Microsoft again with the close and new all-time highs. If we take a look at the weekly, the stock looks just continues to look beautiful. Volume it's fine, and then came back. They quickly find buyers and pushed back to the upside. So it's a nice uptrend in Microsoft. Not much to do right there. Netflix bouncing off the 20. Nice horizontal support as well right there at 662. Maybe a little three-wave move. Let's see if we can crack back upside. And then you got our NVDA, which definitely sold off from 140 down to around 117 or so. Right at the 20 moving average, kind of fighting with it. PPO, it's kind of crashing. Volume is low on this correction, so I would not be surprised to see NVIDIA try to push. If you're pushing towards 135, I think you can make a new high. It's a stock that's going to have to prove a little bit in here. So, looking at it at the weekly, I mean, let me go to a 3-year chart, right? There's nothing wrong with this little move here. It's still up. and it can take a little bit of a pause and then continue to push. So yes, it sold off a little bit, tried to shake some people out here into the 20, and now it's just kind of stabilizing. So it's not definitely not a good entry for longs. It's a bit risky, and in terms of sells, if you use the 20-day as your kind of guide, maybe wait for a more solid close below that. If you're only selling below the 50-day, then there's more room and cushion depending on kind of where you got in. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with the stock. I was thinking an ABC and then maybe further continuation. So let's see what happens here. Oh, one stock I wanted to bring to your attention. I think I'm done with this. Oh, Tesla. A nice move. I shorted into this close to this 200 level, and it's trading to 10. Had to get out of this thing. It's my expectation was that we were going to hold here. We held for a little bit in here, but now it pushed back higher on a pretty good volume. I think the 200-day it's coming right here. Let me change this to a daily, and you'll see if I go to like a 2-year. So here's the 200-day, which is again an important mark in this market, but the move is pretty strong, and if that's a 1 2 1 2, you're probably in a 3 4 and 5. So I know they have earnings, I think, on the 12th of July, so if somebody's front running the earnings, I'm not sure. I don't expect to get through the 20-day that easily, but you could have said the same about kind of this right here, right? You got through and then it pushed higher, much stronger. I mean, it's not the same setup. This was a nice ABC. So it's I don't really think you want to fight this unless you see like a daily comeback, like a bearish engulfing or something, like some kind of a reverse hammer or something to tell you yes, they're about to kind of dump it. So that's Tesla there. A stock that's interesting, and me and Felice here on the side, we looked at it, or we talked briefly about it in the chat about Uber as it was coming here, and I said let's wait a little bit until it definitely gives some signs, and you don't really want to buy below that 50-day, and now finally, right after it had this move from 64 to 72, it is consolidating, which is what you want to see. So first move up, it's fine. Let's call it a wave 1, and then you have a little bit of a sideways moving here above all the moving averages, and is getting a reaction from the 20 and the 150-day right there. So now I think if you crack this level, it's asking you to buy it. So then stops have to be below that level, and then we're watching. We want to see it kind of do something like that and continue. Then you're going to have a big resistance there at about 80. But it's probably, if it cracks that, it's probably going to try to travel up there. So I'm going to have my finger on the buy trigger. If we crack this area right there to the upside. Until then, I'm still waiting, just so this doesn't fall back towards 66 or something like that. But I like what I see here on Uber. So a bit of a longer video. So thanks for watching. I tried to cover a bunch of things. But yeah, I will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.